Have you ever felt completely invisible? That feeling when people look at your clothes or your job and decide they know exactly who you are, never bothering to see the truth underneath. It's a painful, frustrating feeling. But what if the very person everyone underestimated, the one they looked down on, was secretly holding the key to their entire world? We're told that money and power make you invincible, but today's story shows that's a dangerous belief. This is a story that proves true worth has absolutely nothing to do with your bank account. You're about to meet Nicholas Coleman. As the billionaire's son, he lives in a gilded cage where every problem can be solved with a checkbook. His world is one of arrogance, privilege, and power. Then there's Lucy Mitchell. As a brilliant and kind mechanic's daughter, her hands might be covered in grease, but her mind is filled with genius and her heart with a quiet integrity that money could never buy. These two are the definition of rich versus poor, from two completely different universes. Their worlds were never supposed to collide, but destiny had a shocking plot twist in store. You are about to see how he publicly humiliated the mechanic's daughter, mocking her for her humble background, all while his own family's empire was secretly starting to crumble. He had no idea that this woman, the one he dismissed so cruelly, was guarding a powerful secret. He couldn't have known that her secret was his last hope, the only thing that could save him and his family from total ruin. This is more than just a love story. It's an emotional journey about overcoming prejudice and finding redemption in the most unexpected place. It's about a man who has to lose everything to realize what truly matters, and a woman who finds the courage to claim her power. This story will leave you shocked and maybe even a little breathless, reminding us all that the greatest strength often comes from the quietest corners. Before we dive into this incredible story of true love and justice, we want to feel connected. To every single one of you watching, please let us know in the comments what beautiful city or town you're watching from today. We want to see just how far our story has managed to travel. It helps us feel closer to our amazing community. And of course, if you believe in the power of kindness and that everyone deserves to be seen for who they truly are, please give this video a like right now. Make sure you follow our channel so you don't miss out on more stories that touch the soul. And please, share this video with one person you know who would be touched by this message. Your support means the world to us. Now let's begin. The silence in the penthouse office was so absolute you could hear the soft hum of the city's 60 floors below. It was the sound of a kingdom, a financial empire built from steel, ambition, and ruthless decisions. The powerful billionaire father, Mr. Coleman, sat behind a desk the size of a small car, his face bathed in the cold light of a tablet screen. His world, usually a predictable landscape of profit margins and corporate takeovers, had just been rocked by an unexpected tremor, a disturbance he couldn't quantify with numbers. For the first time in decades, he was utterly shocked. He scrolled through the private investigator's report again, his knuckles white as he gripped the device. Each word was a small, sharp betrayal, a crack in the perfect facade of his legacy. Head commissioned this report as a formality, a simple background check on the new woman in his son's life. He expected to find a suitable, if uninspired, heiress from a competing dynasty. Instead, he found a narrative so far removed from his reality, it felt like a poorly written joke. A story that made no sense. The truth was laid bare in a few simple damning lines of text that made his blood run cold. The new girlfriend of his heir, the billionaire's son, Nicholas Coleman, was none other than a simple mechanic's daughter. The words seemed to mock him from the screen, a blatant symbol of the rich versus poor divide he so carefully maintained. It wasn't just a surprise, it felt like a personal attack, a deep wound to his pride and his carefully constructed world. This information was an unwelcome, devastating secret. Oh, the irony wasn't lost on him. He, who could buy and sell entire companies, Before breakfast was being brought to his knees by the existence of a girl who likely had grease under her fingernails. This couldn't be a genuine love story, no, that was impossible. It had to be a scheme, a well-played game by a nobody trying to secure a fortune. He couldn't fathom any other explanation for why his son, Nicholas, would be involved with someone so far beneath him. It was a disaster in the making. His mind raced, replaying every recent conversation with Nicholas, searching for clues he'd missed. The boy had been different lately, distant, but somehow lighter, happier. The father had chalked it up to youthful foolishness, but now he saw it for what it was, a catastrophic lapse in judgment. He felt a surge of cold fury. This girl, this Lucy Mitchell, was a threat that needed to be neutralized before she could cause any real damage to the Coleman name and their path of destiny. He slammed the tablet down on the polished mahogany desk, the sound echoing in the vast empty room. The battle lines had been drawn, even if only he knew it. He had to understand the enemy. He had to understand her. What kind of person was this mechanic's daughter? What magic did she possess to have so thoroughly enchanted the billionaire's son? Before he could act, he needed to know everything about the world she came from, a world he'd spent his entire life looking down upon. Away from the sterile opulence of the Coleman empire, in a world that ran on grit and genuine smiles, lived Lucy Mitchell. You wouldn't find a portfolio of stocks in her name, but you'd find a brilliant mind fizzing with engineering schematics. Her wealth was a deep-seated kindness, a currency she shared freely with everyone who crossed the threshold of her father's humble auto repair shop. She was, in every sense of the term, the quintessential mechanic's daughter, and she wore the title with an easy, unassuming pride. Her days were a symphony of clanking tools and the satisfying roar of a newly fixed engine, a world Nicholas Coleman couldn't possibly imagine. Lucy saw beauty in the intricate dance of pistons and gears, a logic and order that she found deeply comforting. This wasn't just a job to her, it was a passion, a puzzle she got to solve every single day. Her hands, though often smudged with oil, were capable of creating mechanical miracles, a testament to her sharp intellect and dedication to the craft of overcoming challenges. She navigated her world with a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with power or status. Her value was built on what she could do, what she could fix, and how she treated people. It was a simple, honest existence. You could say it was a classic case of rich versus poor, but Lucy never saw herself as poor. She was rich in knowledge, rich in spirit, and rich in the love of her father, a man who had taught her that integrity was the only asset that truly mattered in the end. This young woman, with a mind that could redesign the very heart of a vehicle, possessed a powerful secret that she kept locked away, not out of shame, but because the world wasn't ready for it. Or, more accurately, the corporate world wasn't a place she felt she belonged. She was content in her small corner of the universe, solving problems one car at a time, blissfully unaware of the forces of destiny that were slowly, surely, beginning to churn in her favor. People often underestimate what they can't easily categorize, and Lucy Mitchell was a puzzle to most. She was a woman of immense talent hidden in plain sight, her brilliance masked by a layer of engine grease and a humble demeanor. She wasn't looking for a prince or a savior, she was the hero of her own story, a narrative she was writing with her own two hands. A love story was the furthest thing from her mind, especially one with a billionaire's son. But fate, as it often does, has a wicked sense of humor and a flair for the dramatic. It loves nothing more than to take two completely different worlds and smash them together with the force of a hidden collision. The meticulously ordered universe of Lucy Mitchell and the gilded cage of Nicholas Coleman were on a collision course, and the impact was destined to leave everyone, especially a certain billionaire father, utterly and completely shocked. The day their worlds finally collided began with the pathetic splutter of a $500,000 sports car. Nicholas Coleman, the privileged billionaire's son, found himself stranded on a dusty roadside, a situation he found profoundly irritating and beneath him. After a quick, annoyed search on his phone, the nearest garage was Mitchell's auto repair. He scoffed, but had no other choice. It was an inconvenience he planned to solve by throwing money at it, his usual solution for everything. When a figure in greasy overalls emerged to help, he barely gave her a glance. "Just fix it, and be quick about it," had ordered already on. His phone arranging for another car to pick him up. He saw a mechanic, a laborer, someone to perform a task. He didn't see the sharp, intelligent eyes that were already diagnosing the engine's complex issue with a single listen. He saw the mechanic's daughter, and in his world, that meant she was just the help, another face in the service industry. Lucy. Mitchell, however, saw something else entirely. She saw a textbook case of a faulty fuel injection manifold in a notoriously finicky Italian engine. She also saw a man so wrapped up in his own importance that he couldn't see the person standing right in front of him. The stark reality of rich versus poor wasn't in the clothes they wore, but in the way he looked right through her. It was a familiar feeling, but one she never quite got used to. It was a subtle, quiet way of being humiliated. Nicholas was about to leave when she called out the specific technical fault. Her diagnosis was instant, precise, and delivered with a calm authority that cut through his arrogant dismissal. For a split second, he was taken aback, a flicker of surprise crossing his features before being quickly masked by his usual condescending demeanor. How could she possibly know something so specific? It had to be a lucky guess. He was still blind to the genius before him. This brief, forgettable encounter at least. Forgettable for him was the first thread in a tapestry of destiny he could never have predicted. He left without a proper thank you, leaving behind a generous, almost insulting, amount of cash and the keys. He was Nicholas Coleman, after all, and his time was far more valuable than engaging in pleasantries with the working class. He had no idea this brief moment was the beginning of a truly emotional journey. He drove off in his replacement vehicle, dismissing the girl from his mind almost immediately. She was a nobody, a brief annoyance in his otherwise perfect day. He didn't know that he had just met the one person who would fundamentally challenge his entire existence, the architect of a plot twist that would unravel his family, and the only woman who could spark a love story he never knew he needed. It all started with a broken-down car. Back in the sterile, air-conditioned world of his high-rise office, Nicholas Coleman found his mind drifting back to the garage. It was an unwelcome and surprising intrusion. He tried to dismiss it, but the image of the mechanic's daughter lingered. He was, against his will, secretly impressed. The speed and confidence of her diagnosis were undeniable. Had top-tier dealership mechanics scratched their heads over less complex issues, yet she had nailed it in seconds. It was remarkable. But then, his conditioning kicked in, a lifetime of ingrained prejudice from his billionaire father. He scoffed at the very idea. A woman, and a young one at that, in that kind of position, with that level of knowledge. It was an anomaly, a fluke. He rationalized it as a party trick, something Shed overheard her father say 1,000 times. In his world, women were meant to adorn boardrooms and galas, not get their hands dirty under the hood of a car. The concept was utterly foreign. The internal conflict was confusing for a man whose life was usually so straightforward. He lived in a world of black and white, of assets and liabilities. This girl, Lucy Mitchell, didn't fit into any category he knew. She was a contradiction. The stark contrast of the rich versus poor worlds they inhabited made the thought of her being anything more than a laborer absurd. He felt a strange, unfamiliar emotional pull, a curiosity he quickly tried to smother with disdain. Probably just got lucky, he muttered to himself, trying to reaffirm his worldview. But the thought felt hollow. He knew advanced mechanical engineering. When he saw it, and what she had displayed wasn't luck, it was expertise. This realization was a small crack in the armor of his privilege, a tiny seed of doubt planted in the barren soil of his assumptions. His carefully constructed reality had been subtly challenged, and he didn't like it one bit. A plot twist was brewing in his own mind. He was a billionaire's son, and his path was one of destiny, a pre-written script of power and influence. A girl from a garage had no part in that narrative. To even entertain the thought was a betrayal of everything he was raised to be. He pushed the thought away, focusing on a multi-million-dollar acquisition deal in front of him. That was his world, a world of clean hands and calculated moves, not grease and spark plugs. Still, the seed of curiosity remained. He couldn't shake the image of her calm confidence, the way she had looked at his complex machine not as an obstacle, but as a simple problem to be solved. He didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of an overcoming of his own biases. He was intrigued, and that single spark of interest was about to ignite a fire when their worlds collided for a second, far more shocking time. The second collision happened in the last place on Earth Nicholas would have expected. It was at a high-profile charity gala, a sea of glittering diamonds, tailored tuxedos, and fake smiles. He was in his element, navigating the predictable currents of elite society when he saw her. Across the crowded ballroom, bathed in the soft glow of a chandelier, was Lucy Mitchell. And wow, she looked nothing like the girl from the garage. He was genuinely, completely, and utterly shocked. She was wearing a simple, elegant blue dress that seemed to outshine every other couture gown in the room. There was no grease, no overalls, just a natural grace and an effortless poise that made her stand out. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was just being. She was speaking with a renowned astrophysicist, and from their engaged expressions, it clearly wasn't small talk. The mechanic's daughter was holding her own with one of the most brilliant minds in the country. Nicholas felt a jolt, a profound sense of dislocation. This was the same woman he had dismissed so carelessly just days before. Seeing her here, in his world, shining with an inner light of intelligence and confidence, shattered his initial judgment into a million pieces. He saw now that the dirt on her hands hadn't been a sign of her station, but a badge of her capability. The stark line between rich versus poor suddenly seemed incredibly blurry and utterly meaningless. He watched her for a while, hidden by the crowd, feeling a strange mix of fascination and shame. He had looked at her and seen a laborer, but he was the one who had been blind. She moved with a purpose and dignity that many of the heiresses in the room desperately tried to fake but could never truly achieve. It was a deeply emotional moment for the billionaire's son, a humbling realization of his own shallow prejudice. This was a plot twist of the highest order. This encounter changed everything. It wasn't just about a broken-down car anymore. It was about a woman who was clearly so much more than she appeared. The gears of destiny were turning, pulling him toward her with a force he couldn't explain or resist. He had to talk to her, had to understand how the girl from the auto shop and the woman in the blue dress could be the same person. This was the real beginning of their love story. He started to walk towards her, his heart pounding in a way it never did during a business negotiation. He was nervous, a feeling he wasn't accustomed to. For the first time, he wasn't approaching a situation with the upper hand. He was approaching a woman who had, without even trying, completely dismantled his view of the world. He was about to step out of his comfort zone, driven by a pull he didn't yet recognize as the start of true love. Despite the world of expectations resting on his shoulders, Nicholas found himself irresistibly drawn to Lucy Mitchell. After the gala, he sought her out, making an excuse to have his car checked up on. It was a flimsy pretext, but it was enough. What he found in their subsequent conversations was a quality he rarely encountered in his elite social circles: a profound and disarming authenticity. Her kindness wasn't a transaction, it was a fundamental part of who she was. In his world, conversations were a chess match. a series of calculated moves designed for personal gain. With Lucy, it was different. She spoke of her passion for engineering with a light in her eyes had never seen on the faces of his family's business partners. She was real. This budding connection was a deeply emotional experience for him, a breath of fresh air in the suffocating atmosphere of wealth and power he had known his entire life. This felt like the beginning of an incredible love story. He found himself making excuses to visit the garage, bringing coffee, asking questions about her projects, just to be near that genuine energy. The stark contrast of rich versus poor faded into the background whenever they were together. It wasn't about his money or her lack of it, it was about the meeting of two minds, the spark of a connection that felt bigger than their circumstances. It felt like destiny, a force guiding him toward a more meaningful existence. His friends and family, of course, wouldn't understand. The billionaire's son dating the mechanic's daughter. It was unthinkable, a social suicide. They would see it as a temporary dalliance, a rebellion, not the quest for true love that it was becoming for Nicholas. He was starting to see the hollowness of his own world, the transactional nature of the relationships his billionaire father deemed appropriate. The more time he spent with Lucy, the more he realized that her heart, full of genuine warmth and compassion, was an asset more valuable than any stock in his family's portfolio. She represented a path of overcoming not just financial hardship, but a poverty of spirit that he now saw was rampant among the wealthy. She had something they all craved but couldn't buy: genuine contentment and a clear sense of self. But he was naive to think he could keep these two worlds separate forever. The pressure was mounting, and he knew a collision was inevitable. He was falling for Lucy Mitchell, and soon he would have to make a choice. He decided to face the storm hidden, to introduce her to his family, hoping, foolishly perhaps, that they might see the incredible woman he was seeing. He had no idea he was about to lead her into an ambush. The family dinner was, from the very beginning, a masterclass in passive aggression and overt cruelty. The air in the cavernous Coleman dining room was thick with tension, a stark contrast to the easy warmth of Lucy's garage. Nicholas, holding her hand, could feel a tremor of nervousness and tried to reassure her with a squeeze. But he had underestimated the sheer, unadulterated snobbery of his family and their guests. The billionaire father sat at the head of the table like a king, his eyes cold and calculating. The attacks began subtly, cloaked in feigned curiosity. "So Lucy, one of the guests, a woman dripping in diamonds, began. Nicholas tells us you work with your hands. How quaint." The word hung in the air, a polished dagger aimed directly at Lucy's working-class background. The table was a battlefield, and the theme was unmistakably rich versus poor. Nicholas felt a hot flush of anger, but he was frozen, unsure how to diffuse the situation without causing a massive scene. They openly mocked her background, their words dripping with condescension. They asked if she'd ever been to Europe, if she knew which fork to use, if her father managed to make a decent living fixing old bangers. Every question was designed to make her feel small, to put the mechanic's daughter in her place. She was being brutally and systematically humiliated, not for anything she'd done, but simply for who she was. It was a cruel, heartless display of power. Nicholas watched in growing horror. These were the people he had known his entire life, and for the first time, he saw them through Lucy's eyes. He saw their ugliness, their insecurity, their spiritual poverty masked by immense wealth. He had brought her here, into this den of wolves, thinking he could protect her. Instead, he had served her up for their amusement. The experience was deeply emotional and filled him with a profound sense of shame. His father remained silent, watching the spectacle with a look of grim satisfaction. This was his plan all along, to show Nicholas that his little love story was a fantasy, that Lucy Mitchell could never and would never fit into their world. He wanted to break her spirit, and in doing so, break the bond she had formed with his son. He believed this was a necessary cruelty to protect the family's path of destiny. Lucy, however, remained poised. She sat there, absorbing the blows with a quiet dignity that was more powerful than any of their insults. She was being tested, pushed to her absolute limit. Nicholas felt a storm brewing inside him, a conflict between a lifetime of obedience to his father and the burgeoning, fierce loyalty he felt for this incredible woman. The evening was far from over, and her response would change everything. Just when they thought they had her cornered, Lucy Mitchell responded. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't cry, and she didn't retreat. Instead, she met their cruelty with a quiet dignity and a sharp, disarming wit. When the woman with the diamonds asked about her work, Lucy smiled sweetly. "Yes, it's incredibly satisfying," she said, her voice clear and steady. "It's amazing what you can learn about a system by taking it apart and putting it back together. It teaches you to value what's on the inside, not just the shiny exterior." The table fell silent. Her words were a direct hit, a subtle but brilliant counterpunch that left them momentarily stunned. She wasn't just enduring the humiliation, she was turning it back on them, exposing their shallowness without ever stooping to their level. She proved in that single, elegant sentence that her character was far superior to their wealth. The mechanic's daughter had more class than all of them combined, a truth that was deeply unsettling to her tormentors. When another guest mockingly asked about the most expensive car she'd ever worked on, she didn't just answer. She went on to describe the intricate failings of its specific German-engineered transmission, using technical language so advanced it flew over their heads. She wasn't bragging, she was simply sharing her knowledge. In doing so, she subtly demonstrated an intelligence that none of them could match. The feeling of being humiliated was slowly being transferred to the other side of the table. This was her overcoming their prejudice in real time. Her strength wasn't aggressive, it was a quiet, unshakable confidence in her own worth. She didn't need their approval. The entire ordeal was a stark reminder of the rich versus poor chasm, but Lucy was building a bridge of integrity across it. This wasn't just a dinner, it was a battle of values, and her kindness and wit were her chosen weapons. The billionaire father watched, his expression unreadable, but a flicker of something annoyance, respect, crossed his eyes. He had expected tears and a hasty retreat. He had not expected this formidable display of grace under fire. This young woman was not the simple, easily intimidated girl he had imagined. The plot twist he hadn't seen coming was that Lucy's strength was the real deal. Nicholas was mesmerized. He had been paralyzed by fear and indecision, but watching Lucy handle herself with such brilliance filled him with awe. He saw her not as a victim, but as a warrior. Her quiet courage was the most emotional and inspiring thing he had ever witnessed. And it was in that moment that he realized he could no longer stand by and do nothing. Her honor was his honor now. Witnessing the calculated cruelty directed at Lucy and her incredible dignified response ignited something in Nicholas Coleman. A deep, burning sense of shame washed over him for his silence, shame for his family, shame for the world he was a part of. He looked at Lucy, then at his father's smug face, and knew that a lifetime of passive obedience had just come to a screeching halt. This was his moment of redemption. "That's enough," Nicholas said, his voice low but carrying an authority that silenced the table. All eyes snapped to him, surprised. The billionaire's son, the ever-dutiful heir, had never spoken with such a hard edge. He stood up, pulling Lucy's chair back for her. "We're leaving." The finality in his tone was unmistakable. It was a declaration of allegiance. His choice had been made, and it was her. The billionaire father was visibly taken aback, his composure cracking for the first time. "Nicholas, sit down. Don't be ridiculous." But Nicholas didn't even look at him. He only had eyes for Lucy, his expression a mixture of apology and fierce pride. For the first time, he stood up to his domineering father, not for a business deal or a personal whim, but to defend the honor of the woman he was falling in love with. It was a monumental step in his journey of overcoming his father's shadow. As they walked out of the silent, stunned room, Nicholas felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had finally done the right thing. He had chosen kindness over cruelty, integrity over inheritance. This act of defiance was the cornerstone of their love story, proving it was more than just a fleeting attraction. It was a partnership, a promise to protect each other. It was the beginning of his fight for their true love. The evening had started with an attempt to have Lucy humiliated, but it ended with the Coleman family's own arrogance being exposed. Nicholas knew there would be hell to pay. His relationship with his father was likely fractured beyond repair. But as he opened the car door for Lucy, he knew he wouldn't have changed a thing. This emotional showdown was necessary. It was the only way to prove his commitment was real. What Nicholas didn't know was that while he was having his own personal revolution, Lucy was guarding a world-changing secret of her own. His dramatic defense of her was a pivotal moment in their relationship. But the biggest plot twist was still to come. The power dynamic in their story was about to shift in a way that no one, least of all the mighty Coleman family, could ever have predicted. While the Colemans saw her as the humble mechanic's daughter, a girl defined by her working-class roots, Lucy Mitchell was living a double life. Not a life of deceit, but one of quiet, uncelebrated genius. She held a close-aligrated secret, a creation so revolutionary it had the potential to change the automotive industry forever. It was a secret she protected fiercely, not for money, but because it was her masterpiece, the culmination of years of tireless work and brilliant insight. In a small, hidden workshop behind her father's garage, under the glow of a single bare bulb, lay the blueprints and a working prototype for a new kind of energy-efficient engine. It was based on a patent she had filed under a pseudonym, a revolutionary design that solved a problem top corporate road departments had poured billions into without success. This was her baby, a testament to her true passion and a powerful symbol of overcoming the limitations everyone else saw in her. She never spoke of it. To the world, she was just Lucy, the girl who could fix anything. But in private, she was an inventor, a visionary. The contrast between her public persona and her private reality was staggering. This wasn't just a clever idea, it was a world-changing innovation, a plot twist of epic proportions waiting for the right moment to be revealed. The irony that this power lay in the hands of someone the world saw as powerless was not lost on her. Her secret was a heavy burden, but also a source of immense pride. It was proof that brilliance isn't confined to glass towers and Ivy League universities. It can be born in a garage, nurtured by passion and grit. This secret defined her true story, one that had nothing to do with the rich versus poor narrative others tried to impose on her. It was a story of pure, unadulterated intellect. She had kept it hidden for so long because she feared what the corporate world would do to her. She'd seen how big companies swallow up small inventors, chewing them up and spitting them out. She was waiting for the right time, the right way to bring her creation to light without losing control of it. Her destiny was tied to this invention, and she would not let it be corrupted by the greed she'd witnessed firsthand at the Coleman dinner table. Little did she know, the universe was about to force her hand. An unforeseen crisis was brewing within the very heart of the Coleman empire, a storm that threatened to bring the billionaire father and his arrogant world to its knees. And Lucy Mitchell, the girl they had so cruelly humiliated, was unknowingly holding the only umbrella that could save them from the downpour. This was an emotional crossroads she never saw coming. Meanwhile, in the gleaming steel and glass headquarters of Coleman Tech, a catastrophe was unfolding. The family's corporation, a titan of the tech industry, was suddenly on the brink of a spectacular collapse. Their flagship product, A new line of advanced automotive guidance systems was failing at an alarming rate. It was a catastrophic technical failure, a ghost in the machine that no one out their army of high-paid engineers, not their consultants, not their top minds could identify or solve. Panic began to ripple through the boardrooms. Stock prices were plummeting, and clients were threatening to pull billion-dollar contracts. The billionaire father, a man who prided himself on control and invincibility, was for the second time, in a short period, completely and utterly shocked. But this time, it wasn't a social slight, it was a threat to the very foundations of his legacy. His empire was crumbling from the inside out. Nicholas, estranged from his father since the disastrous dinner, watched the crisis from a distance. Despite their conflict, the business was his birthright, his destiny. Seeing it falter ignited a sense of duty he couldn't ignore. The company wasn't just his father's, it was the livelihood of thousands of employees. The pressure was immense, the situation growing more desperate by the hour. The Ansemity Corporation was now the one being humiliated on a global stage. The failure was deeply technical, a fundamental flaw in how the systems processed energy and data, leading to cascading shutdowns. It was the exact problem Lucy's secret invention was designed to solve. The irony was cosmic. The Coleman Empire, a symbol of the haves in the great rich versus poor divide, was being brought down by a problem that a have-not, the mechanic's daughter, had already conquered. But they were all completely in the dark. This crisis was more than just a business problem. It was an emotional gut punch to the Coleman family's identity. They were supposed to be the best, the smartest, the most powerful. Now they were helpless, their reputation turning to dust. The father, a man used to solving every problem with his checkbook, found himself facing an enemy that money couldn't defeat. He needed a miracle, a genius, a savior. He had no idea that he had already met that savior. He had no idea that he had insulted, belittled, and tried to drive away the one person on the planet who held the key to his company's survival. The stage was set for a dramatic plot twist, one that would force a reckoning and a desperate search for a solution, a search that would lead Nicholas down a path he never expected. Desperate to save his family's legacy, Nicholas threw himself into the crisis. He worked day and night alongside the engineers, poring over schematics and diagnostic reports, searching for a miracle solution. He felt the weight of the Coleman Empire on his shoulders, a responsibility that went beyond his personal conflict with his billionaire father. This was about overcoming the greatest challenge his family had ever faced, and he was determined to find an answer, no matter the cost. He reached out to industry experts, headhunted rival engineers, and offered exorbitant sums for any shred of a solution. He was looking everywhere, chasing every possible lead, but every door led to a dead end. The problem was too fundamental, too complex. The entire company was stumped, and the atmosphere was thick with despair. The billionaire's son was discovering the limits of his power and influence in the face of a purely technical problem. All this time, he was completely, painfully, unaware that Lucy Mitchell held the key. He would spend his evenings with her, finding solace and a sense of peace in her presence, away from the corporate chaos. He saw her as his escape, his anchor of sanity. It never once crossed his mind that the brilliant woman he was falling for, the gifted mechanic's daughter, could be the answer to his prayers. The solution was right in front of him, hidden in plain sight. The dramatic irony was almost poetic. Nicholas was searching the globe for a genius, while the real genius was sitting across from him, sharing a pizza and talking about her day at the garage. Their love story was developing against a backdrop of corporate espionage and frantic problem-solving, with neither of them knowing just how deeply their two worlds were about to intertwine. It was a secret hidden within a secret. The crisis was an emotional roller coaster for Nicholas, pushing him to the brink of exhaustion and despair. He felt like he was failing, that his pre-written destiny as a successful heir was a sham. He was humbled by the crisis, stripped of the arrogance that had once defined him. He was no longer just the rich kid, he was a man desperately fighting for survival, both corporate and personal. He was running out of time and options. The board was talking about a hostile takeover, and his father was becoming a ghost in his own company, a man shocked into paralysis. Nicholas knew he needed a breakthrough, a radical idea, a plot twist that no one saw coming. And in a moment of sheer desperation, he decided to do the one thing he hadn't done, yet be completely vulnerable with the one person he trusted. One evening, looking utterly defeated, Nicholas confided in Lucy. He didn't hold anything back. He laid out the entire corporate crisis, explaining the catastrophic technical failure in excruciating detail, not as a billionaire's son talking business, but as a man at the end of his rope. He spoke of the pressure, the fear of losing everything his family had ever built. He trusted her, and he needed someone to talk to who was outside of that toxic, panicked world. Lucy listened intently, her expression shifting from sympathy to intense concentration. As he described the specific symptoms of the system failure of energy spikes, the data corruption, the cascading shutdowns, a jolt went through her. It was as if he were reading directly from the problem statement she had written for herself years ago when she first began designing her secret invention. The impossible problem the Coleman Corporation was facing was the exact dragon she had already slain. With a sudden, heart-stopping shock, she realized that her secret invention was the only thing that could save his entire empire. The patent. Gathering dust in her workshop was the literal key to the kingdom. She was completely and utterly shocked. The universe had just played the most ironic, most unbelievable hand imaginable. The daughter of a simple mechanic held the fate of a billionaire's legacy in her hands. The ultimate plot twist had just landed squarely in her lap. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her. It was a terrifying, exhilarating, and deeply emotional realization. The mechanic's daughter, the woman they had humiliated and deemed unworthy, was now their only hope. The power dynamic had shifted so completely, it was almost dizzying. This was more than a simple case of rich versus poor. This was a karmic rebalancing of the scales of justice and destiny. She now faced an impossible choice. Revealing her secret would mean exposing herself to the corporate machine she so deeply distrusted. It would mean dealing with the formidable billionaire father, a man who had shown her nothing but contempt. But keeping it secret would mean watching Nicholas, the man she was falling for, lose everything. Her kindness and her feelings for him battled with her instinct for self-preservation. Her secret was no longer just a personal project, it was a lifeline for the man she cared about. The fate of their burgeoning love story and the future of the Coleman Corporation were now inextricably linked. She had to make a decision. She had to decide whether to step out of the shadows and claim her power, forever changing her own life and the lives of the family that had looked down on her. Just as Lucy, after a night of soul-searching, made the momentous decision to reveal her secret and help Nicholas, destiny threw another wrench into the works. She was about to call him when an expensive black car pulled up to the garage. A chauffeur opened the door, and out stepped the billionaire father. Mr. Coleman didn't look at her with anger, but with the cold, transactional gaze of a man about to close a deal. He was not there to ask for help. He got straight to the point, his voice devoid of any warmth or humanity. He spoke of Nicholas's unfortunate infatuation and how it was a distraction during a time of crisis. He painted their love story as a childish fantasy that needed to end. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he produced a checkbook. It was the ultimate insult, the classic move of the powerful trying to solve a human problem with money. It was the epitome of the rich versus poor worldview. "I want you to leave my son," he said, his voice flat. "Name your price. He'll write a check right now, and you will disappear from his life forever." He was offering her a fortune, enough money to never have to work another day in her life. He saw her not as a person, but as a problem to be paid off, an obstacle to be removed. In his mind, the mechanic's daughter surely had a price. He was about to be profoundly shocked. For Lucy, this was the final test of her character. She looked at the blank check, a symbol of everything she stood against, and then at the arrogant man who thought he could buy her integrity. She had been humiliated by this family, and now they were trying to buy her silence and her heart. A quiet, steely resolve filled her. This wasn't just about her invention anymore, it was about her dignity. The emotional weight of the moment was immense. She had the power to save his company, and he was standing here trying to pay her to go away. The irony was so thick it was almost laughable. This moment was the ultimate plot twist, but only she knew it. The billionaire father thought he held all the cards, but he was playing checkers while she was playing a game of 3D chess he couldn't even comprehend. Her path to redemption wasn't for her, but for them. Instead of getting angry, a calm, powerful clarity washed over her. She knew exactly what she had to do. The path forward was no longer about just helping Nicholas out of kindness. It was about justice. It was about showing this man and his entire world what true power and value really look like. She was about to reject his money and make a move that would leave him and his son utterly stunned. With a calm that unnerved the powerful man before her, Lucy Mitchell looked at the blank check and then met the billionaire father's cold eyes. "You can't afford me," she said, her voice quiet but ringing with absolute certainty. She pushed the checkbook back across the table. "My integrity isn't for sale." She rejected his money, his worldview, and his attempt to control her destiny. The father was momentarily speechless, shocked by this working-class girl's defiance. Instead of leaving town as he demanded, Lucy chose a far more dramatic and powerful path. She chose to confront the Coleman board directly with her solution. She wasn't going to give her invention to Nicholas out of love, nor was she going to sell it. She was going to present it on her own terms, as the brilliant inventor she was, not as the billionaire's son's girlfriend or the humble mechanic's daughter. This was her moment of overcoming. This decision left Nicholas completely confused. He had just heard from his father, who furiously informed him that Lucy had rejected a generous offer. Nicholas didn't understand what was happening. He thought their love story was strong, so why was she now going behind his back to the board? He felt a pang of betrayal, not knowing her true motives. The situation was more emotional and complex than he could have imagined, a plot twist he didn't see coming. His father, on the other hand, was beyond furious. He saw Lucy's move as an act of war. He thought she was attempting a hostile corporate maneuver, a power play to embarrass him and take over. He couldn't conceive that her motives might be rooted in anything other than greed or revenge for how she was humiliated. The idea of kindness or a desire for justice was completely foreign to him in this context. The rich versus poor battle had now moved to the boardroom. Lucy, however, was playing a different game entirely. This wasn't about revenge. It was about redemption, not for herself, but for her idea. It deserved to be born in the light, recognized for its genius, not passed secretly under a table. She was claiming her power, rewriting her own narrative. She would save their company, but she would do it her way, forcing them to acknowledge who she truly was. The stage was set for the ultimate climax. Lucy Mitchell, armed with her secret patent and an unshakable sense of self-worth, was about to walk into the lion's den. Nicholas was lost and confused, his father was enraged, and the entire Coleman board was about to meet the unassuming young woman who held the key to their salvation. The truth was about to be revealed in the most dramatic way possible. The emergency board meeting was a grim affair. The room was thick with despair, the faces of the most powerful people in the company etched with failure. The billionaire father presided with a stormy expression, waiting to see what stunt the little mechanic was going to pull. Nicholas was there too, standing at the back of the room, his heart a confused and anxious knot. He was there to witness what he feared would be the end of his love story. Then she walked in. Lucy Mitchell was not dressed in a gown or overalls, but in a simple professional suit. She carried a tablet and an air of confidence that commanded the room's attention. She wasn't the timid girl they had humiliated at dinner. She was a woman on a mission. She began her presentation, her voice clear and strong, as she outlined the precise nature of their technical failure with a mastery that left their own chief engineers speechless. Then came the grand reveal, the ultimate plot twist, the solution. "To your problem," she announced, "is a patented energy processing methodology I developed 3 years ago." She put the patent number on the screen, registered under a pseudonym. A quick, frantic search by one of the board members confirmed it. The room erupted in stunned silence. The mechanic's daughter was the genius inventor they had been searching for. She was the miracle. She was the key. The billionaire father was utterly, profoundly, and speechlessly shocked. His face went pale. The girl he had tried to buy off, the woman he had dismissed as a gold-digging nobody, was the only person on earth who could save him. He was humbled in a way that no financial loss ever could. He saw the full scale of his arrogance and misjudgment laid bare in front of his entire board. It was a moment of complete and total redemption, forced upon him by the very person he had wronged. Nicholas stared, his mind reeling as all the pieces clicked into place. The brilliance had seen, her passion for engineering, her quiet strength. It all made sense. He wasn't confused anymore, he was in awe. He saw her true, immeasurable worth, a value that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with her incredible mind and heart. This emotional revelation was the final, beautiful chapter in his journey of overcoming his own prejudice. In that moment, watching Lucy confidently field questions from the stunned board, Nicholas made his final choice. He walked to the front of the room, stood beside her, and took her hand, a public declaration for all to see. He didn't care about the fortune, the company, or his father's approval. He chose her. He chose their true love, a love built on respect and admiration, a love that had conquered every obstacle. Their destiny was finally, beautifully realized. What an absolutely incredible and emotional journey. We've just witnessed a story that proves that prejudice and pride are no match for the power of integrity and brilliance. We started with a powerful billionaire father who was utterly shocked by his son's choice, and we ended with that same man being humbled by a truth he never saw coming. It's a powerful reminder that we should never, ever judge a book by its cover, because you never know when the person everyone underestimates holds the key to everything. This was truly a story of overcoming. We saw Nicholas Coleman, the privileged billionaire's son, go through a profound redemption, shedding his arrogance to embrace true love. And we saw the quiet, unshakable strength of Lucy Mitchell, the mechanic's daughter, who faced being humiliated and responded not with anger, but with a genius that brought an empire to its knees and then saved it. Her kindness and her intellect were her true fortune all along. Now, we would be honored to hear from you. This story was a real roller coaster, and we want to know what you think. Please take a moment to like this video if our story touched your heart. More importantly, share your thoughts in the comments below. What was the one part of this love story that impacted you the most? Did you see that final plot twist coming, or did the ending completely surprise you? Were you satisfied with the desfecho, or did you hope for a different outcome for any of the characters? Your comments create a community, and we love reading every single one of them. Please don't forget to follow our channel and turn on notifications, so you can be the first to see our next video. We pour our hearts into these stories, and your support is what makes it all possible. We encourage you to look through our library of older videos for more tales of destiny and transformation that we know you love. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Until next time.